Good morning. Welcome to News for Hearing Impaired. I am Anil Thomas. With me, Manisha, this morning. First up, the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in New Delhi after successful three-nation visit. In his meeting with US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of G7 summit, PM asserts all issues between India and Pakistan are bilateral, no scope for third-party mediation. Prime Minister Modi addresses session on climate, biodiversity and oceans at G7, highlights India's large-scale efforts towards eliminating single-use plastic, conserving water and harnessing solar energy for a sustainable future. Normalcy returning to Jammu and Kashmir. Administration says no shortage of medicines or essential commodities in the state. DD News team visits hospitals in Valley. Patients say they are happy with the facilities. In international news, boost to Brazil's efforts in putting out the extensive fire in Amazon rainforest. G7 pledges $22 million to Brazil for the purpose. US President Donald Trump expresses readiness to meet Iran's President Hassan Rouhani and resolve differences on nuclear issue. Trump, however, says the meeting possible only if circumstances are right. And badminton queen PV Sindhu arrives to a rousing welcome after the historic win at the World Badminton Championship in Switzerland. Says she's proud to be an Indian. And now for the stories in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived home from France after a successful three-nation tour. Prime Minister visited France, United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. His visit comprised bilateral and multilateral engagements. His visit deepened India's relations with friends and projected India's voice on the global stage. PM held bilateral talks with several world leaders, including UN Chief Antonio Guterres, US President Donald Trump, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Senegal President Macky Sall. Besides, Prime Minister also participated and addressed in the G7 summit in Biarritz, France. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral meetings with US President Donald Trump. Prime Minister Modi categorically rejected any scope for third-party mediation between India and Pakistan, saying the two countries can discuss and resolve all issues bilaterally. The two leaders appeared together to speak to the media after talks on the sidelines of the G7 summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held several key bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the G7 summit. The Prime Minister held meetings with US President Donald Trump, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Senegalese President Macky Sall. During the discussions, views were exchanged on a range of issues including trade and investment, combating terrorism and tackling climate change. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed two key sessions at the G7 summit. One was on biodiversity, oceans, climates, while the second was on digital transformation. Prime Minister Modi showcased India's journey in both the fields. President Emmanuel Macron announced a $20 million emergency fund for Amazon countries to tackle the forest blaze. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will be on a two-day visit to Moscow from today, during which he will meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov and discuss regional and international issues of mutual interest. Jaishankar and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will take stock of preparations for the forthcoming visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Vladivostok to participate in the 5th Annual Eastern Economic Forum as the chief guest and the 20th Annual Bilateral Summit between the two countries. It will be Jaishankar's first visit to Moscow since the assumption of key office. Home Minister Amit Shah has said that left-wing extremism has no place in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of New India. While chairing a review meeting on left-wing extremism in New Delhi, Amit Shah asserted that India's fight against those who try to subvert democracy with violence would continue relentlessly. The situation in Jammu and Kashmir continues to be peaceful, with people continuing with their normal routines. The administration is keeping the supply chains replenished. Most phone lines are operational. People continue to repose their trust in the administration as development work picks up pace. In a major setback to Congress leader and former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram, the Supreme Court on Monday rejected his petition against the Delhi High Court verdict, which has dismissed his anticipatory bail in a corruption case lodged by the CBI in the INX Media case. The Apex Court said Chidambaram's plea in the CBI case has become infructuous since he has already been arrested by the agency. The top agency said he is at a liberty to seek remedy in accordance with the law in the corruption case. In a first, Karnataka will have 3 deputy chief ministers as Chief Minister B.S. Yedurappa on Monday allocated portfolios to 17 newly appointed ministers who were inducted into the cabinet nearly a week ago. Among the 3 deputy chief ministers are Govind Karjol, who has been given the charge of PWD and social welfare, Ashwant Narayan, the portfolio of higher education, IT and BT, along with science and technology, and Lakshman Savadi with Transport Department. Baswaraj Bhomai gets the home portfolio. Moving to international stories, Johnson & Johnson have been found liable for fueling an opiate epidemic in Oklahoma by deceptively marketing painkillers. The drug maker has been ordered to pay damages of $572 million, which has been used to address the epidemic for the next 30 years through addiction treatment and prevention programs. Johnson & Johnson has, however, denied wrongdoing, saying its marketing claims had scientific support and that its 2 painkillers accounted for a tiny fraction of opiates prescribed in Oklahoma. Thus, it said that it would appeal. The case brought by the Oklahoma Attorney General was the first to go to trial out of thousands of lawsuits filed by the state and local governments against the opiate manufacturers and distributors. G7 has agreed to spend $22 million to tackle the huge forest fires engulfing the world's biggest Amazon rainforest. This was stated by presidents of France and Chile on Monday in the G7 summit in the French town of Biarritz. The G7 group, comprising Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and the United States, has also agreed to support a medium-term reforestation plan, which will be unveiled at the UN in September. The initiative was announced after G7 leaders held talks on the environment, which focused on the fires destroying chunks of the Amazon rainforest. Nearly 80,000 forest fires have been detected in Brazil since the beginning of the year, a little over half in the Amazon region. In Peru, locals took up brooms, shawls and branches to fight back advancing fires at the Ampe Natural Reserve in the Apurmac region. Over 140 hectares of forest has been burned so far. The country is battling near 150 fires in the dry season. These wildfires in Peru come as neighboring Brazil struggles to control tens of thousands of fire in its Amazon region. US President Donald Trump said he was prepared to meet his Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani in the next few weeks after talks over Tehran's nuclear program at a G7 summit in France. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif made a surprise appearance on the sidelines of the summit in Biarritz at the invitation of French President Emmanuel Macron. Macron said that the condition for a meeting between Trump and Rouhani has been created through intensive diplomacy and consultations. At a joint press conference with Macron, President Trump said if the circumstances were right, he would certainly agree to meet. Asked by reporters if he thought the timeline proposed by Macron sounded realistic, Trump said it does and added that he thought Rouhani would also be in favor. US President last year unilaterally pulled out of a landmark 2015 international deal that placed limits on Tehran's nuclear activities in exchange for trade, investment, and sanctions relief. One of the oldest Moscow nunneries constructed in the 14th century caught fire late on Monday night. The fire started on the top floor of a dormitory of the Rozdestvensky convent, also called the Convent of Nativity of Theotokos, and spread to almost 400 square meters. Investigations have begun on what caused the fire and how much damage has been done to the historical building. Moving to sports, Indian shuttler PV Sindhu returned home after creating history by clinching the gold in the World Badminton Championship in Switzerland. She beat arch-rival Nozomi Okuhara in Japan in straight games, and that lasted 38 minutes, and she got a rousing welcome there in the national capital as she returned. That's all we have time for in this bulletin. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.